To the Greeks, the Cimmerians had always been a people of the myths. The mysterious people, dwelling beyond their known domain. The people who lived in a land permanently deprived of sunlight, at the edge of the world, and close to the entrance of Hades. But now these people, who once served the needs of the Hellenic belief system, have become a direct military threat, an independent people over whom the Hellenes had no control. They stand at the doorstep of the people of Ephesus, ready to loot and plunder, and bring chaos into their city. A contemporary poet of Ephesus named Calenus paints for us a very vivid picture of this moment in his epic verses. He gives us a glimpse of the fear that the people of Ephesus were going through at this moment. When the Cimmerians came to Anatolia, they became a threat not only to the Greek cities of the Aegean coast, but also to Lydia, as well as to the mighty Assyrian Empire. And although their time here may be a brief one, but the tale of the chaos and disorder that they caused here would be told for the rest of the history. The Cimmerians once lived in the Caucasus steppe, but they left their country as the Scythians began to migrate into their territory. They moved southward, crossed the Caucasus, and reached the southern Transcaucasia. Here they invaded the Urartu and began to take part in the political upheaval in West Asia. They allied themselves with the Medes, the Mannaeans, and occasionally with the Scythians, who came to West Asia soon after their arrival. The Cimmerians always fought against the Assyrians, and were always a threat to its northern borders. But the Cimmerians soon started to move towards Asia Minor in the later part of the 8th century BC, and around the mid-7th century BC, they had established Anatolia as their center of operation. And so there became two groups of the Cimmerians, the Eastern and the Western, with the Western being bigger and more powerful than the East. The exact date of their arrival towards Anatolia is, however, unknown. But as early as 679 BC, the Cimmerians were active in Asia Minor. The Assyrian Annals, the Gygemerai, tells us about the defeat of Cimmerians, under the leadership of Tushpa, by Esarhaddon's governor at Kabushna, on the northwestern confines of the Assyrian Empire. An Assyrian record of the same period records the presence of a Cimmerian detachment in Nineveh. However, this reference is not clear whether they are Cimmerian mercenaries, or simply Assyrian soldiers armed in Cimmerian style. But we can say for sure that they were working with Rusa II of Urartu as mercenaries, and in a large number at that, around 673 BC. These mercenaries may have been hired when Urartian king Rusa II, and the new Cimmerians leader named Tugdamni, made an alliance around 675 BC. Rusa and Tugdamni allied together, and led a campaign against Muski, Hate, and Halitu. And the result was the invasion and destruction of Phrygia. And the tradition recounts that King Midas II of Phrygia, who had previously attempted to stop the Cimmerians, killed himself after this event. The Cimmerians plundered the Phrygian capital of Gordion, but they neither settled there, nor destroyed its fortifications, and left it for later plunder. Although Phrygian were subdued by the Cimmerians, the Phrygians are mentioned in Assyrian oracular texts as its allies, and they together conquered the Assyrian province of Melid. At some unknown date, the Cimmerians imposed their rule on Cappadocia, invaded Bithynia, Paphlagonia, and the Troads, and took the recently founded Greek colony of Sinope. They destroyed its initial settlement, and killed the Hellenic soldier, including Habron the Milesian, the first founder of the city. This city then went on to serve as a temporary headquarters for the Cimmerians for a while after this. Now back to Phrygia. So after its invasion, the Phrygia was completely weakened, there was a power vacuum created in Anatolia, and so the kingdom of Lydia arose to fill the power gap by establishing itself as a new rising regional power. Cimmerians would then soon attack Lydia as well. Gyges, the king of Lydia, sought help from Ashurbanipal, king of Assyria, but he probably defeated the Cimmerians alone, without Ashurbanipal's help, as no such assistance is reported to have been given by Ashurbanipal. Right after this victory, Gyges had a dream, in which the Assyrian god Assur appeared to him, urging him to implore the favor of Ashurbanipal. And so he sent to Ashurbanipal many gifts, and captive Cimmerian soldiers, who had been caught ravaging the Lydian countryside. Around this period, the Cimmerians had already formed a sedentary settlement in Anatolia. In 657 BC, the Assyrians records a bad omen for the Westland, and the Assyrians were expecting the Cimmerians to march against Lydia, and so this was another Cimmerians' attack on Lydia. About this period, Ashurbanipal, the king of Assyria, seemed to be worried about the security of his northwestern border, and he began to seek answers concerning the situation through divination. And from the letter by the astrologist to Ashurbanipal, we can deduce that in 657 BC, the Cimmerians were known as a leading political force in Asia Minor, which was threatening Assyria. Cimmerian king Tugdami, according to a letter by the astrologist Acalanus, was given the title of Sarkasati, which means the king of the universe, a title which in the Mesopotamian worldview could belong to only a single ruler in the world at any given time. Thus the Cimmerians had become a force that was well known by this time. And Tugdami's success in Anatolia might have made him recognized as equally powerful as Ashurbanipal. This situation remained unchanged throughout the rest of the 650s BC and early 640s BC. So the Gyges and Ashurbanipal have had an alliance for quite some time now. But soon everything went downhill. Gyges sends forces to Psammetichus, the king of Egypt, not particularly to help him revolt against Ashurbanipal, but probably to help him in their civil war. Ashurbanipal took this as a move against him, and he accused Gyges of breaking his loyalty. And so their ties were broken now. And this would cost Gyges his life. The Cimmerians attacked Lydia for the third time in 644 BC. Gyges, with no help from Assyria, was killed in battle, and his capital Sardis was captured. After this, Gyges' son Sardis sat on the throne, and he resumed diplomatic ties with the Assyrians. Ashurbanipal, who was concerned about his Anatolian borders because of the Cimmerians, was more than willing to form alliances. After sacking Sardis, Tugdami led the Cimmerians into invading the Greek city-states of Ionia and Aeolis on the western coast of Anatolia. Callimachus, a Greek poet writing in the 3rd century BC, states that Tugdami tried to destroy the temple of Artemis in Ephesus, and God punished him for this. And among the other Greek cities destroyed during these invasions was Magnesia on the Meander. And according to Stephanus Byzantius, the Cimmerians ruled the city of Antandros in the area of Traos. After the invasion of Lydia and the attack on the Greek cities of Asia, the Cimmerians moved to Cilicia, on the northwestern border of the Assyrian Empire. There Tugdami joined forces with Mugala's son, the king of Table. But after some time, Tugdami ceased his hostile moves against Assyria, due to the intervention of the gods, and sent tribute to Ashurbanipal, and swore an oath to him. However, no agreement was signed between the two powers, which would have recognized the superiority of the Assyrian monarch. Tugdami now began to be called the king of Amynmanda. Tugdami, however, soon broke his oath with Ashurbanipal, and again threatened the borders of Assyria. However, he fell ill and died at the border of Assyria. After this, Sandaksatru, his son, followed him upon his throne, and attempted to continue Tugdami's attack against Assyria, but failed just like his father. Herodotus and Strabo records that the Cimmerians still continued to be a threat to Lydia during Ardi's reign. In 637 BC, the Cimmerians attacked Lydia again, but this time in allies with the Trarians and the Lycians. The Lydians were defeated, and Sardis was captured for the second time, except for its citadel, and Ardis was probably killed in this attack. However, the power of the Cimmerians had dwindled after Tugdami's death, and the Cimmerians were left in a vulnerable state. Nothing more was heard of the Cimmerians after the sack of Sardis in 637 BC. The Scythians, who had come to West Asia after the Cimmerians, were somewhere around Media during this period, and were vassals to Assyria. Medeus, the king of Scythians, with permission from Ashurbanipal, marched towards the east. Medeus allied himself with Aliatus, who was king of the Lydians during this time, and they together defeated the Cimmerian, and finally repulsed them for good, after which they are never heard of again in ancient sources. The remnants of the Cimmerians were probably assimilated by the population of Anatolia, and they completely disappear from the history after their defeat by Medeus and Alyattes. And so this was the end of Cimmerians. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And thanks for watching.